Next, we have Dan Gering. He's the tourism project specialist for the city of Oregon City. He's worked in tourism for over 16 years as a destination marketer for Clackamas County before he came to Oregon City just 4 months ago. And before that, he worked for the private sector in Colorado, providing technical expertise to tourism partners. He brings a vast knowledge of all things related to the ever-changing world of tourism. He has connections to the community, technical expertise, deep understanding of the visitor experience, and a love of Oregon. So please welcome Dan Gering.
I'm going to feel sorry for the camera guy because he's going to have to follow me around too. So as she said, I've been with the tourism industry for about 14 years. I actually handled the technical side of things, mostly related to the web. But that gave me an insight to how tourism functions. And just because of the team that I worked with, really gave me a very strong insight on what tourism is for a destination marketing organization. And, oops, how do I go back? There we go. I just have been brought on with the City of Oregon City. James Graham is my supervisor. I think many of you have heard or talked to James, so I see a lot of nods. So James is well known in that one. And one of the things that he touched on, that Aaron touched on before, is where do we fit in, and I wanted to point out that, yeah, we're in the Portland region, that we draw from that specific audience, and I think that kind of, I want to use that one little moment to kind of help seed the rest of our conversation, because that Portland metro market is going to be a very impactful element to us here at Oregon City. Let's talk about some of the negative impacts that are happening to tourism for Oregon City. And we all know number one is economic. There's a lot of economic elements that are in play right now. The rise in inflation is a very scary element for us as Americans. We have not seen this in a very, very long time. Also, employment. The employment world has changed drastically as we have adjusted to the post-COVID world, and we have people who have been participating in the employment world step away from the employment world, doing their own thing, starting their own businesses, changing careers, and that has a drastic impact on the tourism industry. Because we've had people leave specific industries like restaurants where they're having to come up with a new way to deal with how they're dealing with employment. We've also had a change of expectations. I'm going to use my trip to Disneyland that I just recently got back from. I went to a hotel at Disneyland and I went in and I'm like, all right, this is a nice room. And the very first thing the desk person said is, due to our limited staff, you will need to ask us at the front desk for towels and no one will come in and clean up after you. You know, that turn down experience is gone because they're trying to figure out how they're even going to manage what they are doing on a day-to-day basis. They told me when our TV in our room, why I was worried about the TV in our room turning on at Disneyland, but I was trying to get the news while I was getting ready for the day. When the TV didn't come on, they were like, we're sorry, we don't have a maintenance guy until 10 o'clock. His shift starts then, and he works late. So those impacts change our expectations. We think that we're always going to have clean towels, but now we have to ask for clean towels. And that's a huge difference in how we interact. We also have a hostility towards things. We become exceptionally impatient. And that's a significant change in 2022. You have people, and all you have to do is watch YouTube for 5 minutes, and you have found probably 15 videos of someone blowing up in the middle of a hotel, a restaurant, a grocery store, etc. So those are some other changes. We've also noticed crowding. I don't know if anyone ever saw any of the news about what happened at Yellowstone during the COVID experience. When they finally reopened, they were overwhelmed. Multnomah Falls, overwhelmed. So much so that they have to change their practices on how they actually function. Now you have to get a pass to be able to go down the Gorge Highway. That's a pretty significant difference. And that's just the tip of a small iceberg. I mean, we are actually hearing a lot of national parks talking about changing their whole structure so that you have to actually have a ticket before you can go in, because they cannot handle, based on the current staffing or just the basic needs, they cannot handle the number of people that are coming in. Also, of course, we have gas prices. Now, I'm an RVer. I have a trailer. If I pull my trailer, my gas mileage goes from 22 miles to a gallon of gas to 9 miles to a gallon of gas. That is a significant impact to my ability to do camping. And when I camp, I go to communities, I input a lot of cash into those communities, I provide a lot of economic stimulus in those communities that I can't do this year. I went from 11 trips last year, last year I did 11 trips. This year I can only afford 5. And those are all in Oregon. There's no traveling into Washington like I've done in the past, or into California, which I've done in the past. It's all changed. But one of the things I want to keep in mind is, this is a Longwood study. Aaron touched on this a little bit, that Travel Oregon has a large amount of data that has allowed us to be able to see some of these pieces of information. Now, it's not specific to Oregon City in this case, but it is a good understanding of what's happening here in Oregon. And one of the things that, if you look at this report shows how many people, the impact of rising gas prices on decisions to travel in the next 6 months. Look at how much, we're talking about 59% of people that were surveyed are saying that this will impact how they are going to travel this year. So what does that mean for us here in Oregon City? Well, I believe it or not, I'm going to take that exact same list and turn it upside down and say that that's actually a positive to us. And part of it is, for example, the economy and the gas prices means that people will not be traveling as far. It doesn't mean that they're not going to travel. It means that they're going to take day trips. They're going to use that kind of element. We need to keep our thought processes in Oregon City related to that philosophy, that that is actually an economic element for us to take advantage of. Another one is employment. Now, we are seeing people changing careers. Now, how is that an advantage to us in the tourism industry? It's injecting new thought into businesses that have not maybe thought that way prior to this. A good example of that is by introducing a brand new program idea. A hotel can completely change how they handle the towel situation. In one hotel case that we saw while we were at Disneyland, we found out that they actually had a cart. One of the employees came up with this idea of putting the cart with towels in the lobby, but he warned on the side of the sign that says, "This is under camera view." So there was a camera watching to make sure everyone was using the appropriate amount. That cart was rarely ever more than half full. I mean, people used it. And they had a nice bin right next to it so that they could put all the dirty towels into it. And it actually helped increase efficiency for the staff that they did have available. Another thing that we look at with crowding is more crowded areas like Multnomah Falls means that we can leverage opportunities to be able to draw some of that crowd away and into Oregon City. See, you can always turn this negative into a positive. And this is how we need to make sure that we do this. One of the things that's important about tourism, though, is that we have to stay on our toes. Now, in the tech industry side, any guy that works on the web who worked for 14 years is probably gone mind numb. And what I had always said was the world had changed so much in that 14 years. When I first started, all we had to worry about was Internet Explorer and Netscape. Who cared about those? Oh man, that was a nightmare for us to have to worry about. Today we're like, what mobile device are you using? And how can I communicate to a traveler in an effective way that makes it enticing? The travel planner concept, where we have a paper travel planner. Now, is that something we need to do away with today? No. We have people who still need to have that feel of paper in their hands. But can you structure a travel planner in a completely different way so that that travel planner not only has the beautiful pictures for those Instagram children, but we also have fast facts for those Facebook children, and then we have some readable content for, I don't know what we want to call those kind of children, but they're children, okay? They're the travel children, there we go. But we have to start changing our philosophy of how to meet those needs for everyone. So Dean Runyon is one of these reports that comes out from Travel Oregon, and I'm only going to touch on this one a little bit, but it helps kind of give a little bit of insight for Oregon. Overnight volumes for Oregon, as you can see, 2019 took a huge dip, and we're getting to the point where we were at we're above where we were at, we're even about where we're at in 19 now. The numbers are starting to come back up for the hotel rooms, but the other overnight elements like camping, et cetera, is still back, kind of taking a step back to 2000 before it's gotten moved forward. The other thing too is visitor spending by residency. Now this was the end of 2021 when they came up with that data. International travelers bring about 2% of additional income, but the reality is Oregon is 38% of the people spending money. And I believe that next year we're going to see that number actually drastically shift. Now, next year we see the number, and you can laugh at me if I was wrong, but that's my guess. But the rest of the United States is, when they come here, they're spending money. Our friends over at the Australian Regional Tourism created this graph. I borrowed this only because I think that this is a great insight, but although it's lacking something, it's an insight of how tourism impacts all sorts of businesses. Now, I'm going to ask you, how many people here are actually involved in a tourism business? That you feel like you're directly impacting a tourism business? Dan's a good example of one, yeah. Okay, now, how many people here have been a tourist? Haha, yeah. So how many people here who are not in the tourism business believe that their employees take vacations and they become tourists? So I think there's this funnel that comes down where the traveler impacts all the vehicles, it gets to the campgrounds, the fuel, the food, and the farm, and helps funnel money into those economies. And then that impacts sales, employment, wages, taxes. It all ties together. But I think this chart actually kind of misses something. And that is, I actually think it needs to have this additional arrow. And that means that all those businesses have employees who then refeed the tourism loop again every time that they go on vacation. So the importance of, one, having vacation is to keep your employees fresh and inactive, keeping them active and going. But the other part of it is that they're actually fueling the economies as well. Now, how does Travel Oregon City fit in this? Well, we're funded by the TLT, which is the transient lodging tax. So River Shore gets their money, they pay a percentage of that money that they get for their hotel room, and it goes into the Travel Oregon City funding, and that is then used in a different way. So the lodging goes into that, and then we go into our primary. Used to be the way DMOs are working would be that you would funnel your monies directly only into marketing. Advertise. Get the advertisements out there, get them into Oregon City. Yeah, we did a good job because we put out enough ads. Now, years ago, if I put an ad in a Sunset magazine would have been a great market because there was lots of people who read Sunset magazine. It was in every doctor's office, dentist office, real estate office. It was everywhere. But we never had any data to tell us if we were being effective. But we were putting a lot of money into that. Then the internet comes along and it creates a little bit of different marketing for us. We now can track some of the data. Now, Aaron touched on the big brother kind of stuff that is like, oof. But we still track, even on just the most basic surface, we can identify when we do market something that if we were effective or not. And so we have to make sure that we always set some kind of a standard that allows us to be effective. Sunset Magazine, you can't do that anymore. You can't use that as your only sole thing. Oh, well, they have 4 million readers. Yeah, but you don't know for sure what's coming out of it. If I do an ad, for example, at Willamette Week, I know that they have 50,000 Portlanders who are going to read it. But now I have analytic data that says if I see an uptick, when I know that ad is running and has been released, and I see an uptick of direct traffic coming to the website, then I actually can tie the effort that I made together with that. I used to be the biggest advocate of no billboards. Billboards, what a waste of time. I'm a digital guy, no way. Until we came across this formula. All of a sudden, we were doing a marketing campaign for Mount Hood Territory in Austin, Texas. And when the billboards went up, we saw direct traffic coming up because people saw the URL up on the bulletin board. And then they type it in. Hopefully they weren't typing it in while they were driving. We said the same thing about Bus Kings. In Seattle, you put a big sign on the side of your bus, and when you saw direct traffic increase in Seattle suddenly that was higher than it was before that, it's something you can then tie together. Now, I go back to Sunset Magazine. Sunset Magazine, I might get more direct traffic, but I can't really equate it to being anything else but that. I always get an increase in traffic. That's my whole goal of life is trying to get more people to come to my website. And so I gotta make sure I do something that's significant. So then we also talk about promotionals. So we put together a travel planner with a new thought process behind the travel planner. We make sure that we have brochures that are available so that when the visitor is actually in market, they can actually have something to say, oh, well, I've just visited the End of the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center. I can now go and do something else. We also are creating programming where we enhance the tourism element. So for example, we're trying to figure out ways to help bring more people to the heritage sites. So these historic sites are super valuable to us, so how can we entice people to not only just visit the historic site, which might draw a specific audience, but can I expand that audience to some other group of people? So what if I turn it into a date night? Where we have some other activity when they actually come to the historic site. It's not just the museum, but maybe, and we saw this with Ermitinger just recently, they did their Booze and Brews experience, where they were able to expand their offering to not just be about the history, but it also brought in a little bit for the drinking and a business gains from that element. So we have to create creative programming with partnerships. Let me make sure you fully understand that word. We want partnerships. It's working together to create uniqueness. Because otherwise, we're just the noise, just like everybody else. We have to figure out things that make us unique and create experiences that will catch fire. So it's a real big balancing act. We really have to try to figure out what combination of things work together. For example, most people think of Oregon City as a historic sites location. That is a huge element. Think about it if you look at this diagram. It's that really big ball, and then we have a whole bunch of little things that we also have to still do to get a good balance. Otherwise, we get lopsided, and we end up not achieving as many goals as we need to. So we gotta come up with ways that will be able to work together, because without that heritage, that big heritage ball on there, we would have fallen over. We're just a place that has food or a place that has some outdoor recreation. We have some parks, but how many other places have that? Well, we don't. We have historic sites, which we need to make sure that we get to a point where we can really enhance those. It's all about branding as well. So picking up the brand for Travel Oregon City, making sure that we refer to Oregon's hometown, making sure that it feels comfortable, being able to say welcome home. If you guys have not seen the banners all over the place, we have 91 banners currently up. We're also adding another series of them on Highway 99. We just got the authorization from ODOT to be able to put those up so that when you come into Oregon City, you have a connected piece. Whether you're on the downtown area, you're in Midtown, or you're in Uptown, all of it's tied together. We're also working on quite a lot of website restructuring and improvements. We have, right now, in the outdoor section, we only have like a little slideshow that has a couple images. I'm actually gonna get all of our partners onto that page because we need to have partner interaction. They need to know, one, we're sending them people, other than just a link that says, oh, well, here's where Ermatinger House is. No, we wanna be able to get them connected to that. Oops, I went and pushed too far. The other thing too is there used to only be Sip, Savor, and Explore, and it was like a minimal Explore section. I've already expanded that quite a lot. We actually have a Stay section now because we do have a hotel. We need to promote that hotel. We have the RV park. We need to make sure we promote the RV park. And you know, those kind of elements need to be brought in. And the other thing is that we are doubled already how many events that we have on our events calendar, because I push constantly. If you've got an event, send it to me. Go just to the bottom of the Mount Hood, sorry, now that was a slip. Travel Oregon City website down at the bottom, and it says submit an event. It's super easy just to submit an event right there. And so, events, send them to me, please. Also too, we have increased our social media engagement. If you haven't already followed Travel Oregon City, please do. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. Right now, we are promoting the Historic Preservation Month, and that is, we're totally focused on each month, or each week was dedicated to a specific site. This week, I kind of had a little bit of a gap that I wasn't prepared for, so instead, I went around and took historic pictures through the McLaughlin district of the homes. I have already, just having those pictures of those historic homes on there has tripled my engagement, more than I had. I had some flowers that I had put on there that was really, really popular. I don't know exactly what happened with those flowers, but those flowers were super popular. This has now beat all of that. And so those historic homes, tomorrow's phase 2 of that, and we're gonna also go to the Kanema area and get some of the pictures of the historic homes there as well. And I'm just hoping to be able to help people realize that there's more going on in Oregon City. The other thing too is we started engaging with video. We have put together with each home that we focused on so far, with the Holmes home, Ermatinger, we were able to already create some short video clips to help get some encouragement. I'm already prepped and ready to go, so when the End of the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center is ready to go, I've got a video already prepped and ready to go for them. We ran a video for Moot, and that was a really, really, really popular video. We're also putting money behind getting paid advertising so that helps push that into the Portland market. That's the advantage of that, is that we're pushing all of this into a market area, which is the Portland metro market. I make sure that I include the targeting to make sure that the Hillsborough area is included, because statistically, whenever we push into the Hillsborough area, we see an uptick in traffic volumes, and that is those Intel employees. That is that tech industry area that's coming out of that Hillsborough area. We also created a partnership with the Rose Festival. The city has actually paid a promotional fund so that we could help them have their float in the Rose Parade coming up. So this little covered wagon that's kind of up in the front is actually going to be replaced with our logo. So it's going to have Travel Oregon City on there. But the main purpose is still leaving that to the heritage organizations, the Oregon City Heritage Coordinating Committee, to help keep them promoting and keep them engaged. We are also in the early stages of putting together our second advertising. So we did a first one, which was a high-level overview. This next one is going to be a recreation one, and then in August, we're going to be, for the August, September, October months, we're going to be doing a heritage-focused TV ad. So this one, only because we are right now just trying to make sure that everyone's open before we push out too soon, because if we push out and they're not quite ready, then we would probably be doing them a disservice rather than an improvement. So we just moved our recreation up a little bit, and then we'll really push the heritage as the final TV ad set. We're about to restart the Community Showcase program. I don't know if anyone participated last year, but basically it's pairing heritage organizations to get them involved, to come up with some kind of a contest, a program contest where they can then, the people who visit can earn a gift certificate, which will then be usable in some of the restaurants locally. And again, my name, ooh, that's blue. My name is Dan Gering, and it's dgering@orcity.org. And if you have any questions, well, I think that's coming up next.
Thank you, Daniel. I'd like to invite both Daniel and Aaron to come on up, and we'll answer questions. We have many questions from the audience, so we'll just jump right to those. This is for either of you. Do you think the employment impacts of the Great Resignation on hospitality industry is permanent?
Go for it. Yes, I think it is permanent. I think that people are reevaluating how they fit into the economy. And many people pushed upward. I think a lot of people don't want to hear yes as being the answer to that, but I think that it's gonna be a while before we can phase that out.
I'll say maybe. Workforce-related issues have obviously were exacerbated because of the pandemic, but this is also kind of a deeper-seated problem that has been going on for years and years and years that was fairly abandoned as far as like that next generation, that next group of hospitality industry workers. And so there are a lot of people working on educating. There's hospitality courses now you can take at universities. I was asked if I'd be interested in actually going out and speaking to high school students about the benefits of working in the hospitality industry, which if you want to trace my life back to Aaron, the 17-year-old host at Grady's American Grill, it is all tied in together. And I was like, absolutely, I would love to go talk. So while it isn't a downturn, I have to talk to our hotel partners as far as retention of employees, recruitment of employees has gotten better. It is not back to where it was, but it is on the rise. I just talked to Holly a couple days ago at Best Western, and they're almost to full capacity again, and they're retaining those employees. But again, I think it underlies a deeper issue of just, again, that next generation of people in the hospitality industry that are working these frontline jobs. I think there's a lack of education out there about what you can do and kind of using that as a platform to take off to just a myriad of other different industries that I would love to talk about at a later date. But again, like I said, it's going to take some education, but I think there's a lot of people out there that are aware of the problem and are working pretty hard to kind of remedy that.
Okay, this question is for Aaron. We're coming up on Abernathy Bridge construction as well as tolling. How do you anticipate this will affect your efforts to bring travel to Clackamas County and Oregon City?
Thanks for the loaded question. Travel is in people visiting outside a 50-mile radius? Whoever asked the question? I don't see it affecting them that much. I think this obviously affects the locals, way more people using the bridge on a daily basis if it was tolled, as opposed to people coming in for a one-week trip. I mean, I travel around the US. I'm originally from Dallas, Texas. Every road there is tolled. I was there for about 3 days. I rented a car and I took the option of, adding the $12 a day to my rental car thing to just give me unlimited tolling on these tolled roads. And so I think if you're a visitor coming to an area, you just kind of almost accept it as the norm that certain places have roads that are tolled. But as far as local visitation, or again, the locals that live in that area, I think it's going to impact and affect them more because they're using it on a daily basis.
All right. Has growing interest in addressing climate change and sustainability changed how tourism attractions and businesses provide their product or service and how they market themselves?
I think going back to what I mentioned before about the impact of crowds on specific locations, the impact of that needs to be taken in consideration as you roll out activities. Using an example of an event where they only have 25 seats, and they make a waiting list, and then they're able to run that event again is a really smart way to handle some of these elements, rather than saying, oh, well, we can handle 30 people or 40 people, and then it really feels the pressure. And that's a turnoff to people that are involved in this. So I think being able to then shift that to maybe offering it more rather than just once.
Read the last part of that question again, because I had an answer for it. I just forgot.
Let's see. Has growing interest in addressing climate change and sustainability changed how tourism attractions, business provide their product or service?
Yes. There's your answer. Quick example, First Nature Tours offer guided tours, and they've actually shifted over to offering regenerative tourism. It's like the latest tourism buzzword, regenerative tourism. Sustainable tourism, throw them in the same bucket. But it's about, and I think I talked about this with even that Destination America that signed the tour with TMK Creamery, it is about, there's been a spike in wants and offerings of educational tourism that gives back to the community. Again, like regenerative tourism, like you would go on a nature walk and then everyone would plant a tree at the end of it or something. But again, it's all about leaving the place that you're visiting in a better way than you found it or than you came. And that's actually seeing a huge upward trend as far as what these businesses are offering. Again, I mentioned First Nature Tours. They actually have a regenerative tourism tour now. So people are starting to create these things because it's supply and demand. The demand is actually coming from the consumer. The tourists are actually wanting to do these things. And so the businesses, if they don't get with the program, they're going to get left behind. But they are shifting towards that and kind of accepting that, especially the outdoor guided outfitters, if they don't take care of the land, then they're out of business. And so it's really about kind of taking care of the place that you're in and making sure that the people are visiting are doing the same thing.
How are we turning the Multnomah Falls visitor into a potentially Oregon City or Clackamas County visitor?
So I'm driving down the highway and I want to go to the Multnomah Falls experience as I'm coming into Portland. And now suddenly I've got a gate that's stopping me from being able to come into that area. And now I have to figure out, what am I going to do next? And what we need to do is find ways to then, as they've reached that element, how can we engage them so that they will be then redirected to saying, well, this falls is closed, but you can now come and see this falls. And it could be that we have signage, we have some forms of elements. It's just something that we need to think about how we can do that. But it is something that is becoming more and more important. I know I was trying to go to Cascade Locks and seeing that gate close and then open and then close and then open and close is a huge impact and a turnoff to being able to say, I want to be able to do this experience. They're ready to do an experience. Now we just have to figure out the ways to be able to get them to come and experience something else instead. And so it could be a billboard. It could be a busking on the side.
I think on the county level, it's kind of a hard juxtaposition because, answering the previous question about sustainability and getting more cars off the road, the Hood Gorge region and the Friends of Columbia Gorge and everyone along that corridor, they've done a good job of, really like promoting and having a public transport option to get people out to Multnomah Falls, cutting down the number of cars going through the historic highway by, creating that, the permit program to get in. So kind of wanting people to use public transportation, but it only goes from kind of the downtown Portland area there and back. If anyone's familiar with the Infinity Loop, that's something that everyone's trying to work on. It's a multi-jurisdictional project that involves ODOT and other things, but the goal is to get public transportation from downtown Portland, up along the Columbia River Gorge, up through Hood River, back down Highway 26. And so that would bring people into our county, and that would be a great thing to promote as far as a sustainability thing. We have a car-free rack card that promotes car-free travel from downtown Portland all the way up to Timberline Lodge, because you can do that. And you can take public transportation out into the Columbia River Gorge. It's that gap on 35 that's missing. And so a lot of people are working on this. It might take a little while, but I think that's where we really start kind of promoting and pushing people. Because again, if you think public transportation, then they're back in Portland. Okay, now back in Portland, now jump in your car and come this way. So I think the completion of that infinity loop is going to be the best thing to kind of capture that audience who's going out to Multnomah Falls, and then circle around the mountain, see the rest. There's stops along the way. That's what I'm waiting for. So.
All right. Please tell us about the World Athletic Championships and how you think those could impact Oregon State and our region.
So I've been talking with Travel Oregon related to this event, and it's down in Eugene. It's going to be the largest track event in this region that's happened in a long time. There's a lot of people that are going to be coming into the PDX and driving through 205 down to I-5 to get down to Eugene. So the opportunities of people expanding their trips has usually increased. Travel Oregon is hoping that, as they make their marketing efforts, that they make Oregon a welcoming place to all the visitors. So as Travel Oregon City, we're the kind of the hub point for Travel Oregon to get all of the stickers for our businesses, to get banners, some signage. So during that period of time when they're going to be here, we want Oregon City to be a friendly, welcoming place for them. We are anticipating that we will have additional visitors because they're already extending some of their vacation time to make sure it's beyond just the event. Plus, all those people who didn't make it onto stage 2 of the things need something to do while they're waiting for the rest of their flights to go home. So we're going to be leveraging that as well.
So we're going to be leveraging the losers, basically, the ones that know. So as far as a county level, I know that we're looking, I know that one thing that we did, the first thing I did was actually talk to our hotels on the I-5 and 205 corridor and ask them, have you seen any sort of spike in bookings pre and post of the World Track and Field Championships? Tepid response. And it's hard to gauge too because it's the summertime, which for a lot of them is their busy season. So they don't know if that's just kind of an increase because it's summer or if it is a direct result of these people booking to kind of do pre and post visits. What our marketing team is planning on doing, I know that we're going to write some content pieces on things to do in Mount Hood territory, pre and post while you're here. We just finished our contract with SEO and SEM agency. Was it Anvil? That's who we used to, yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm asking you because my former coworker. But we're going to be doing some targeted ads and targeted content that's going to be directly aimed at those people that are attending the event, as well as using our social media channels to push out, again, paid advertising to target those people attending the event on things you can do in the area. And that's kind of, I think, what we've got so far. Yeah. Oh, and we also reached out to our partners, and we've had a couple people write itineraries for us on what you can do. Or here, come to our place. It includes a tour, this and that, and we're going to push that itinerary out, or those itineraries that we get from our partners, to them as well.
Great. Thank you so much. That's all the questions we have time for today. So please, a round of applause to our speakers, Daniel and Aaron.